Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the Legislative Committee together today and start our meeting as we go through with the update with our legislative group. I want to thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Appreciate that. Now that I've got your attention, I want to welcome everybody here and glad that you could come together to hear an update. And I will ask Josh Waller, the Director of our Policy and Government Affairs, to come forward. He will give us an update on the Georgia Freight Commission as well as a legislative update from state and federal. Josh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee and full board, Commissioner, thank you for the opportunity today to present to this legislative committee. Highlights are, first up, we'll talk about the federal fiscal year 22 appropriations process, as well as an update on the debt ceiling. Then, as mentioned by the chair, an update on the Georgia Commission on E-commerce and Freight Infrastructure funding, kind of three pieces highlighting the previous meetings, key concepts, and the next steps. And then talking about the GDOT freight funding study and making clear to the understanding what it is and how it's different from the Division of Planning's update of the Freight and Logistics Plan and just the distinctions there. So first up, with respect to federal fiscal year 22 appropriations, on December the 23rd, the President signed into law a CR, continuing resolution, for all federal appropriations through Friday, February 18th, 2022. So the math on that is that we were originally under a CR through December 3rd, so this adds 77 days. I call that math out because it's not that the spigot is open through February the 18th. They will take the amount of funds that Georgia is apportioned or obligate that they're going to give an obligation authority, divide that by 365, and then multiply that by 77. So that'll be, once they process this, they will give us an amount equivalent to that. That should, according to our finance division, give us sufficient certainty to be able to have a stable lettings between now and February. Certainly, as we look to what Congress does over the next couple of months, we'll get a better view of the projected forecast. The other piece of this is that the federal debt ceiling, which has cascading, if they were to fail to increase it or extend it, could have cascading impacts. That is set to expire mid-December. December 15th was the date. It's sort of fluid. The Secretary of Treasury balance accounts and make determinations as to when they would hit that ceiling. But the most recent news is that there's a compromise afoot that would allow them to address it, extend it at least into February of next year, if not beyond. So hopefully that will not be an ongoing issue for the next few months. So next, I thought it would be helpful because there's an interplay. Last month, I did an update on the Federal Transportation Reauthorization, the IIJA, and there's some interplay between that and the appropriations process. So I thought it might be good to sort of illustrate, and we use a lot of terms, especially this time of year with CRs, to underscore what we're really talking about. So going back to last year in 2020, there's highlighted in orange was the fiscal year 20 appropriations that was governed by the Fiscal Year 20 Appropriations Act. You can see the start of the federal fiscal year is October the 1st. So last year, FY21 was beginning, and they didn't do a new Appropriations Act. They did an extension of FY20. In fact, there were 4 extensions, one of which was just a 24-hour extension. And that brought them to December the 27th. Then the former president, President Trump, signed into law the FY21 Omnibus Appropriations Act. So that's the act that we're currently extending. So when we say a continuing resolution, that's taking the prior year's Appropriations Act and just changing the date at the bottom of it. So instead of being September 30th, it became December 3rd. And then from December 3rd, it's now February the 18th. So that's the appropriation. Where this interplays with the authorization bill is on the 15th of November, the president signed in the IIJA. So all the policies, all the authorizations, all the changes to how USDOT functions, the requirements for projects, that's all in effect. All those programs exist, but the funding, and I've highlighted there going back to that December 27th date, when those appropriations were set, that's the money to capitalize and put and authorize programs in the Federal Highway Trust Fund. That was while the FAST Act was still in effect. So that's why the CR, even though IIJA is the law of the land, the funding is pegged back still to FAST Act levels. So how that translates here is, y'all saw this slide last month as part of the IIJA update. Those are the core programs, those formula programs, the guaranteed funds that come down to the states, and that's Georgia's apportionment. Those programs in blue, those are the ones that were authorized, were part both in the FAST Act and IIJA. The four in green, the first two are new programs. They're funded out of the Highway Trust Fund. The bottom two are new programs, but they're funded with advanced appropriations. So because this continuing resolution, that first block in red, they're funded, but they're funded at FAST Act levels until the 18th of February. The ones in blue are unfunded because of the CR. The blue line, the box.
But when you say they're funded for the 18th, that doesn't mean the money has to be spent by the 18th.
So that means that the apportionment they're going to make available to us that we can authorize projects is going to go through the 18th. It won't expire on the 18th. That's just the amount of money we can go to FHWA. Going back to that, they take the amount they're going to give us, divide by 365, multiply by 77, because that's the number of days in the CR. Those funds will be available to us, and they'll be available beyond the 18th. The ones in blue, though, because they're new, they were part of the IIJA. So when that appropriations was signed in December 2020, they didn't exist. The funding, just the funding, is not there for those. But the ones at the bottom, because the IIJA created some new programs outside the trust fund, the Highway Trust Fund, they actually provided 5 years of funding in advance appropriations. So those monies are available regardless of the CR. So with that, maybe before I transition to the commission, if there's any questions.
I was going to ask, with respect to the implication of the funding staying at FAST Act prior levels, does that mean essentially that as of now, let's take the first line, the 137 million, the plus 17.1%, that's not coming right now?
That's not available, correct. That is not available to be authorized.
Now, assuming Congress does what Congress should do, will that money be retroactively available, or if we lost 77 days out of a year's worth of? That'll
be up to Congress when they write the bill, how they go back to capture, whether they go back and that would not just be for USDOT. It could be for just USDOT, but for all the federal agencies, because every federal agency is operating under the CR, it'll be up to Congress to write how they treat that. So they'll have to put in language to say we're going to go back and fully fund an amount that's equivalent of a full fiscal year, or will they just say for the remainder of the fiscal year, we're going to prorate?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Vice Chairman, let me add on before Josh moves into the next category. It's super complicated, and Kevin, great question, and the complexity is changing from the previous transportation authorization to this new one, and how that happens. In the past, under FAST Act, under continuing resolutions, it was pretty clean because the funding limitation was already set, the programs were already set. So this is really, you're sort of crossing horses midstream here with these new categories, and so that will be yet to be defined of what that looks like. But I want to go back to what Josh was talking about, and this becomes very much an accounting exercise with Angela and her team in the Office of Financial Management, Angie Robinson, who's presented to you before. There's a lot of work to reconcile once that goes forward to get the right fund codes. Each of these categories on the screen you see has a specific federal fund code and even sub-buckets under that. So it's a big accounting exercise, but the one thing I want to go back to is the appropriations under continuing resolution. I want to remind the board that we advance more projects than their federal dollars for. I believe my understanding is so far, we have about $365 million of federal money available for us to use in those terms. And you'll hear the letting report tomorrow, or from last month and this month will probably surpass that. So I remind the board that we do something called advanced construct, of where we advance projects so that we don't stop work. We advance projects with state dollars. Federal Highway allows you to go in their system basically and say, you know, I owe you, when those federal dollars are appropriated through Congress, and we get paid back, if you will. So we go through that process, but there's a huge amount of work from Angela and her team and in budget and financial management to reconcile this, to keep things moving so that we just don't, you can't operate on a daily pro rata share. You know, projects just don't work that way. So I just want to commend them and the team and Josh for, this is super complex, and the complexity is a new law, as it's called now, the bipartisan infrastructure law, is in place, but it's using old formula funding that's tied only to those things that correlate directly from old bill to new bill. So anyway, just as a reminder, because as he said, and the thing he said was, we're good through February bids for projects, and we'll have to see what happens. We're going to get close, because February 18th, in February, we would be already advertising projects for, we'll be advertising projects in March. So we'll stay abreast of what's going on and keep you informed, especially in the next month, if seeing what the tea leaves are looking like. But at some point, we can no longer pay it forward, and we're not saying the sky's falling now, but we're going to pay close attention.
Yes, James.
So my understanding would be that once we get past January, we won't be doing, unless something changes, we're not going to be funding new projects. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
We'll,
we got enough funds to do them without
We're good. We're good through February based on the information we have now, and we'll have to reassess in January, early February, about what's going to go forward after that.
If nothing's changed.
If nothing, and yeah, I mean, we would expect something to change. We just don't know if it's a full appropriation at IJA or the bill levels, or if it's a continuing resolution, which has other consequences as well. So just again, just to want to put a little more flavor on the conversation. Again, sky's not falling, but we're paying close attention to the sky.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll just
Anyone
note
else?
one thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyone else with a question now, till we go forward? Continue.
I'll note one additional thing, because the Commissioner made a good, and this is actually more straightforward. So new habits kind of die hard, apparently, because I'm still saying IIJA. So, but we may be in the future, because of US DOT, they seem to be very inclined to use the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is bill. So instead of hearing IIJA, you might hear us start saying bill. So it's been sort of up in the air. So the prior authorization was called FAST Act and had neat names like Safety Lou and things, Safe and Safety Lou and things like that. But or ICE-T, Safety Lou. So it might be bill. So just if you hear IIJA or bill, same thing. That's just USDOT. Yeah. But I'm still, because it's been IIJA for a few months, I'm still set on saying IIJA. But it may be bill. It probably will be bill. So
Josh, I'm reminded of that cartoon. I'm just a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. If you're a certain age, you might remember that. So we'll make that the transition to the Georgia Commission on E-Commerce and Freight Infrastructure Funding, which was passed by this last General Assembly. Membership equally divided between four senators, 4 House members. Each the Speaker and Lieutenant Governor picked 2 people from the private sector. Our Commissioner was on the commission, and Griff Lynch with the Ports Authority was also on the commission. So they had 3 meetings thus far. We'll jump in here. The first one, I think you may recognize that picture there on the bottom right. It's that corner of this room, in fact. They held their first meeting here. The first presentation of the meeting was done by our plan director, Janine Miller. Kind of provided them insight on the update of the freight and logistics plan. And then Senator Brandon Beach and former Representative Kevin Tanner came and gave a recap of the prior freight commissions.
And then there were a couple of technical presentations looking on supply chain. And then the last one was Sandy Lake with the Department of Economic Development, Georgia Center for Innovation for Logistics, who gave sort of a post-COVID freight and logistics update. And I have an excerpt of a slide that she presented. It's sort of interesting. You can see there, I'll read it off here. In 2019, there were only $2 billion days outside the holiday that were e-commerce. August of 2020, we had 130 days. And then every single day from May to the end of June, and that would have been 2020, was the $2 billion e-commerce day. The rate of e-commerce penetration in the U.S. grew by 10 years and 90 days in a 90-day period in 2020. And then U.S. e-commerce projected for 2021 is forecast at $843 billion. So that was kind of one of the first presentations the commission saw that talked about the skyrocketing e-commerce, which I think all of us have experienced. We know anecdotally, we see the stories. We ourselves are probably ordering stuff as opposed to going into stores, but that was the first presentation they saw that really captured that growth. The second meeting was in Athens at the Classic Center, and the first presentation was by Wes Clark with the Carl Vincent Institute out of the University of Georgia. And I'll have some I have some excerpted slides from these presentations, which I'll touch on as well. But a presentation from the Texas Transportation Institute that was sort of more of an overview of what the TTI does. Their products that are available. They talked a little bit about the cost. He talked a little bit about the cost of congestion in Georgia, and then looked at some of the innovations that we might expect in the freight and logistics space and potential future use of right-of-ways. And then Sandy Lake gave another presentation on the role of economic development, transportation infrastructure's role in economic development, and then a presentation from Jason Goldberg with Retail Geek on the future of e-commerce. I've got a few slides from him as well. But first off was Dr. Clark, who the department actually partnered with Carl Vincent a few years ago on this study that was requested by the General Assembly, looking at the economic benefit of investing in transportation. It was specifically geared at House Bill 170 and that additional infusion in investment. And he underscored to the commission the key takeaways is for every $1 billion in transportation investment, on top of that billion, you get an additive $850 million in economic activity, supporting almost 12,000 jobs. And one of the things that they have underscored about investment in transportation is that you have very little leakage to other states. So that means dollars spent in Georgia on transportation stay within Georgia at an incredibly, about I think at 85-90% rate. So he reminded the commission about that, as well as the second part of that study from a few years ago was it looked at 15 projects. And that upon completion, what was and looked at in 4 metropolitan areas, what was the aggregate effect over a 10-year period of the benefit, because that project had either been improved or built. And for those 15 projects, it was about $5.7 billion over 10 years. And you can see the different categories it breaks out into. But I think it was just important for them to hear, and he wanted to make sure they understood that value of whatever we ultimately invest in transportation is going to pay more in dividends and have additive benefits. So next, the few slides from Jason Goldberg with Retail Geek, and I think the first presentation they had at the commission with Sandy Lake and some of the statistics. That graph on the left shows you that even prior to COVID, that beginning trend in growth in e-commerce as people begin to opt for that as opposed to going to the store. And then on the right, it just shows sort of the recent challenges we've had in that increase in those TEU costs. You can see there on the right. That just sort of underscored, because on top of just the general growth in e-commerce, the commission did have a lot of questions about the experience of the last year and understanding sort of the congestion around the ports. And at the Athens meeting, Griff Lynch highlighted that one of the things that was a major factor was retailers having learned some of the lessons, or one of the things that how they responded to the shortages at the start of the pandemic was they shifted how they bought. So usually they were operating on what's called just-in-time, where they weren't keeping a whole lot of inventory in their stores or warehouses. They were ordering it when they needed it. Well, retailers began ordering more. And so just like when there's a rumor there might be a gas shortage, everyone starts lining up at the gas station, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a little bit of that dynamic. And so it helped the commission get a better grasp around, okay, what's kind of going on right now? What are some of the lessons learned? The other thing that he touched on was that you have a lot of these retailers that are, instead of looking to ship from warehouses, he underscored that Target, 95% of their online sales, they were sending those out from their stores. So you have folks like Target and Best Buy that are utilizing their stores as their warehouses as opposed to building additional or ramping up the number of distribution centers. I think this was very important for them to hear, and they underscored because obviously however the market goes on this, it'll have an impact on movement, and certainly us as a department and other transportation entities, how we respond to the changes and how that freight moves and is purchased. So the last meeting they had on November the 15th, there was a presentation from Bob Poole at the Reason Foundation, kind of gave them a 101 on the per mile, the vehicle mile travel fee as you see a rise in electric vehicles, and how that might impact gas taxes and what might be other ways to ensure that investments coming back into the road infrastructure. There was also a conversation, the commissioner underscored what the department's current participation with the I-95 corridor, just obviously trying to make sure we stay on the edge of that and understanding what might need to be done as that transitions. I will say that the commission, in their questions and their conversations, certainly touted they thought the House Bill 170 did the annual registration fee for electric vehicles. And they felt that for the time being, that was a pretty stable way to ensure that wherever you have a loss of motor fuel, you have that fee to at least offset it and invest in the infrastructure. The next presentation was I gave the next presentation that day, and it was kind of a preview of practice before I came to this board later that week. And it was just on the federal transportation bill, underscoring the increases coming from the bill, BIL-IIJA. And I think one of the key takeaways they identified and took away from that is that as we start seeing these additional federal funds, particularly these intermodal additional federal funds, the need for the General Assembly to identify those additional revenues for match, and match being a critical component. And on the intermodal side, that match is going to have to be from general funds because of the constitutional restriction on motor fuel and the statutory constitutional restriction through the trust funds on the House Bill 170 fees. And then the last presentation was a perspective on freight rails and supply chain. So some of the key concepts and the next steps, again, they were looking at what are the factors that have kind of driven this most recent pinch points in freight. Recurring things continue to be truck driver shortages, truck parking issues, blocked railroad crossings as the trains get longer. That's still things that when you're looking at what are the solutions, what are the things we're trying to address and related challenges. And then opportunities such as identifying the funds to ensure that we're able to compete on the competitive side and match additional federal funds. And their next step will be for the commission is to finalize their report and adopt it by December the 31st. So related to that effort, during the last session of General Assembly, they put into the budget funds for the Intermodal Division to do a freight funding study. And it's sort of to work in tandem with the efforts of the Freight Commission. So the Intermodal Division is over the study, and it's focused primarily on the funding opportunities and looking at how do you identify either existing or new ways to invest. And just again, this is different than what the Planning Division is doing, which is the statutory update to the more comprehensive freight and logistics action plan. So it's going to be looking at what are the types of investments, what are the long-term vision for transportation. The intermodal study is really focused on that issue of ways to fund. So just separate but related studies or efforts. So the Intermodal Division is working with Moffitt & Nichol on the study. Moffitt & Nichol's got a lot of experience in the freight space, working with the Ports Authority, and the expected study is going to be completed by, projected to be December 2022. And with that,
I have a question.
Do we have any questions, Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Josh, I want to go back to a comment you made on the VMT, or the price per mile fee. And I'm just curious if you're aware if anyone has come up with some type of pricing formula or pricing schedule of what the cost of something like that, what it might look like.
And they complete a study, so you have estimates. I think you've got different states, some of the different states that have had pilots. They're probably calibrating, okay, what we collect here. So I think the answer is probably it exists. Is there one standard yet that says this is what you replace? I'm not aware of that. Like I think because it's still in a space where you've got a lot of pilot projects. But what you're going to see now as part of the federal law is a greater focus on looking at that. And I know the Commissioner probably has.
Any additional comments?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, a component of IJ or bill is there is a pilot program there to continue work done at the national level, because in Georgia's case, we have addressed on at least at one level electric vehicles and that usage contributing to transportation. On the federal level, it doesn't exist now. There have been several pilots around the nation on mileage-based user fees, and pretty much, to my knowledge, everybody's only charged the equivalent rate of what the comparable miles per gallon would equate to, so that there's equity in, if you're buying gas by the gallon or if you're participating in a pilot program. And Josh mentioned a coalition. We are members of the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Used to be called I-95 Coalition. I know Ann knows about it, being in the First District. Great, all the states up the Eastern Seaboard, and we've even allowed Alabama and Tennessee to join. And they don't touch I-95, but that they've done a good bit of pilot. They're on their fourth pilot now, and we have expressed our intent to participate if they get a federal grant in their fifth pilot. I think it's fifth pilot, to have an opportunity to learn and gain information about mileage-based user fee, just from a data point of view. And their first rollout was in the Northeast and in the smaller states, in New Hampshire, Connecticut, and those states where the interstates, especially I-95, you go in and out pretty quickly. And I think the first outcome they had was trucking, from a trucking point of view, is pretty easily done. It gets a little harder on the private vehicle side, and then the cost of collection becomes the real issue of that data, collecting the data in different formats. There's obviously, people have concerns about who's tracking where I'm going and those kind of things, personal privacy issues, and so there's different forms of technology that you can still get at mileage-based user fee, but nobody's quite addressed, to your point, well, what's the rate going to be? Yeah. If you collect it that way, what's the ultimate rate? And that's still, it's been more of the exercise on, does the technology work, is it feasible to collect? I'll just say in Georgia, my numbers will be wrong, we're a little over 10 million people, almost 11 million people, and I think it's about 10 million registered vehicles in Georgia. So it becomes a big collection effort on mileage-based user fees. But anyway, we've applied. If they get a grant, we'd like to participate, just again, get our feet wet, see what the other states are experiencing. Pretty much out of that Eastern Seaboard, everybody down to North Carolina is participating right now, so we'll look to join on the next time if they get the federal grant to participate and try to learn more and share with the board, what we're seeing and learning, because this is, with more EVs in the market and the trajectory which is a lot faster than anybody thought, it will certainly have a revenue impact that has to be addressed.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Josh, this has been a great discussion. I think it brought out a lot more points of interest from our board, and I'm appreciative for the board asking those questions and all of you being here today to help. If there's no further business, then this committee stands adjourned.
Chairwoman and committees and the board, happy to be here, happy to see everyone. Yes, I am Kyle Moat, the State Talent Development Manager, and today I'm going to give an update on our talent development or training programs. I was in front of the board in February of 2020, I think, or January 2020, around then, so it's been almost 2 years. I just want to talk a little bit about the rebranding that we've gone through from training to talent development now. Give a brief overview of what we do, and then we kind of focus on the innovations and some of the additions that we've made to our training program in the past 2 years or so. and then give highlights of our local technical assistance program and our district offices, and then just give a general wrap-up as well. So we were training, the training section in HR, and we just kind of changed that to talent development. Felt that really kind of captures more about what we do within the department. Everything is an investment into the talent, which are our employees within the department. So just kind of wanted to change that name. Our mission and our vision stayed the same, but we just wanted to kind of bring that up to the new 2021 terms instead of just training. So here is a summary of trainings offered all throughout our district. So basically everything from how to use a chainsaw properly to professional engineer development, CPR, defensive driving, things like that. We just run the whole gamut on the trainings that we offered here, and this is just kind of an overview or a summary of what we do. We also participate in certifications, things from the Worksite Erosion Control Supervisor or our WEX program to the LAP and the plan development process. So we help internal and external customers with all of these. So it can be as far as doing the testing, proctoring the test, coming up with the test. So we do participate in all these certifications as well. This is our leadership pyramid. So at the top, you'll notice we've got AASHTO training. So AASHTO is something that we participate in annually. They had 3 different levels of trainings that we could send people to. So we send people to all 3 levels, employees to all 3 levels of trainings annually. We have our advanced management development program with a step below that. Step below that, we have our management development program, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then also proud to introduce Supervisor 101, which we'll get to in just a minute as well. So this is our pyramid. So you kind of come in, once you're promoted to Supervisor 101, then you go through management development, then advanced, then qualify for those AASHTO trainings. So our management development program. So it is a 2-week in-person training that we've done since, I guess, the 90s at least, maybe even back to the 80s. And we use a consultant that AASHTO used to use for their national transportation leadership trainings. So it's 2-week in person. Usually you go 1 week, take a couple weeks off, and then go another week. And in those 2 weeks, you are learning about your listening skills, you're learning about your management style, you're learning about how to change habits, how to introduce change into your department. So it's a large gamut of things that you learn in this. And it's 2-week in person. And then a byproduct of that is we separate everybody into groups. Those groups come up with a project. And the project's to help innovate or change the department. And Emily Fish spoke to the committee last month, and she talked about the salt barn inventory stockpile reports that came out of MDP. So one of the projects that came out of MDP in 2021 is already starting to impact us. So really happy to highlight that. So it's 2-week in person, and we were doing this. We've always done 2-week in person. And March 2020, we had just finished week 1 in person, and then everything kind of slowed down as far as in-person meetings went. So we had to internally think about how to challenge ourselves to deliver a training that we've always delivered in person, and how could we do that to help invest in these employees that we were promised a 2-week training to. So in 2020, I'm happy to say that we did the first nationwide hybrid model. So we had group meet in person for 1 week, and then week 2 we did virtually. Here's a picture from their virtual days. So it took us a little bit to come up with the material. We had to convert it all to either video or how to do it virtually. Learned a lot about ourselves, learned a lot about how to do things virtually. It was a great learning experience, but I'm happy to say we were able to still deliver that for those employees and for the department in 2020. So our success from that led to 2021, the first nationwide, the first one in the nation to do a 2-week leadership program virtually. So we were very happy with that. So here's a screenshot of that, and then here's another screenshot of that same class, just highlighting Josh. Josh Waller always comes and participates with Dr. Tom. Dr. Tom's our consultant. Josh does a great job participating and really supports our effort. So does Jimmy Smith, our former D2 DE. Jimmy does a fantastic job with us, and we're helpful that we get all the support from all executive staff and from our DEs that we do with this. So that led us to this most recent fall 2021. So we were able to go back to in-person 2-week leadership program, but we added some stuff that we have learned from our virtual trainings. And that is how to be a virtual leader, how to be a virtual team member, and how to do virtual presentations. So we added all that back into our curriculum. And so here's a picture of the class. We reduced the class size. We usually have 35. This time we have 21. We did it in a larger room just for social distancing. So this is the class studying their management styles, which is a very cumbersome self-examination. And then here they are graduating, and that's up at Amicalola just a month and a half ago or so. So happy to say that we got that in. And now I want to talk about that virtual leadership and meetings. So this is our RAMP model, as we called it. So it's virtual leadership and meeting best practices in a virtual environment. RAMP stands for relationships, accountability, motivation, process. And we are taking employees through all of these steps as it relates to the virtual world. This was actually developed because one of our consultants and Jimmy were having a conversation with our current D2 DE Corbett. And so they were talking to Corbett Reynolds. This was right when things were starting to slow down for us in person. Corbett said, you know, I need to learn how to connect with these people that are working virtually. And so from that, the group went back and created a nationwide focus group that we had GDOT stakeholders on. I think Andrew Heath was one of the stakeholders. And from that, they came up with these best practices. And because of the questions that asked within the department to these consultants, we have impacted the nation with unrolling this RAMP process to other DOTs. And I'm very happy to be a part of it. Here's a screenshot from that. You'll see Russell is in there, Meg is in there, Angela's in there. Dover had his camera off, so that was one of the things we took away from that leadership stuff is not have your camera off, but it's okay to talk about him now. So now down to that next rung of that pyramid that I gave you, that I showed you. Supervisor 101. Basically, this is in our internal learning management system, ELMS. And what it is any supervisor or someone who's about to be a supervisor could go in and have these videos available on demand. These videos they're mainly focused on HR policy. So, you know, what do you do if there's an employee relations issue? You know, how do you approve a time card as a supervisor? So just giving this back to the employees and really investing time with these trainings and these videos to help frontline first-time supervisors. Another innovation that we had is we decided that we needed some resource for our telework. So we created a Telework Hub, and it was a great collaboration with IT, communications, and HR. Basically what it is, this is on our homepage. It's a hub, and we have trainings for all employees. We have trainings for supervisors. We have policies and other resources. And we also updated our telework policy and our telework training all during the past year and a half, 2 years. So we also came up with FAQs that are located here. So anyone could go onto this hub and download and view any of these resources that we've added. Just to show you how much we knew that was needed, this chart shows our web-based trainings that were completed within our internal system for 2017, 2018, 2019. That total was just north of 17,000 completions total. In 2020 and 2021 so far, we are almost at 24,000 completions. So I'm not an engineer, but I think that means that we were averaging about 5.6 thousand a year in 17, 18, and 19. In 2020 and 2021, we're now averaging 12,000 a year. So those resources that we get back to our employees are really coming to fruition, and people are really taking advantage of them. So we're very proud of that. So our local technical assistance program highlights that I was talking about, basically this is our LTAP office, and that's a division of talent development. They go out to local communities, make sure that they have the resources to have federal monies come to them and compete and participate in federal projects. So their highlights that they did, they had 0 online trainings available. Now they've got 15. And most of these are available at no cost to the local communities, which is fantastic. Started doing WEX, which I'd mentioned before, and temporary traffic control as an online course, stuff that had never, ever been done within the department. They were able to partner and do webinars for other LTAP centers. And then instead of having people say, hey, we're going to meet in the area office in Macon, where, you know, you can get 50 people in there, but we try to get in about 175, we were able to go to these communities and give the trainings that are more specific to the community. So if Albany called up and said, hey, I want a training here specifically in Albany, we could go to Albany. So it gave us more specialized and targeted trainings and smaller classes for the community. Our districts, our 7 districts, I'm happy to say that hopefully by next week, we will have all of those vacancies filled. We've got 2 vacancies left. So our district employees, they really condensed their material and condensed the class sizes that we were having. So they offered more classes just with less people in them. They ensured that we're making our mandated training that the governor sets forth, the policies, make sure that we're doing those annually, we're getting those done on time. They assisted our other districts. So we had employees from District 5 drive into District 4 to assist there, or having somebody from 3 go to 2 to assist them there. So I was really happy with that. They helped LTAP. They helped our IT office with training and proctoring. They offered internal supervisor training, you know, how to manage your calendar kind of trainings. They added materials to the hub that I showed you, participated in our NEO trainings, and then we also were able to do Foreman's Academy and Area Managers Academy, and they were able to participate in getting those set up. So that was those are some great highlights from there. We also did some soft skill trainings this year when everything started to go virtual. I'm proud to say that every district, every office had employees participate or give the opportunity to participate in these trainings. They're either done third party or done internally. We had over 600 trained just in, I think the total was 6-7 months. And those topics were effective listening or transitioning from peer to supervisor, the virtual presentation, thriving in chaos. So we were able to give those trainings to people. So just in review, what did we start? What did we stop? And what did we continue? We started virtual leadership, RAMP. We started those virtual soft skill trainings that I just mentioned. We reduced our class size, and we started increasing training opportunities, and we added new content with the Telework Hub and our Telework policy. We stopped in-person trainings where virtual is a better option. Sometimes you could deliver the same material to more people virtual, or even in a hybrid. So we stopped just making everyone be in person for training. We stopped our old Telework policy trainings, and we reduced our class sizes. So we stopped having large classes. We continued to offer our trainings for our needed certifications, whether it's supporting our PE or WEX like we had talked about, supported our new employee orientation, our boot camps, leadership trainings we continued. We continued with something called GDOT Connect, which is a mentoring program that we have internally. So we started doing that virtual in 2020 and 2021, and we always continue to support the department's mission and vision. So that is my update. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
I guess that means I did better than Josh because I didn't get any questions.
Chair, I always have a question for Kyle, Madam Chair, if you don't mind.
Please.
Actually, more of just I just wanted to follow up on the local technical assistance program. That is a federally funded program, and Kyle mentioned this, but it's a great resources to your local government. So as each of you go back to your respective counties and cities in your districts, make sure they're aware of that. It's a great resource. It is well used. Beverly Fortino that runs that does a great job. It's a very lean staff and uses a lot of information and training that's sort of available nationally, but we administer that. It's a great resource, especially to a lot of the rural counties that to the road crews and I mean basic things. I think you threw up there like chainsaw safety is like the #1 course, but it's a really hands-on and it defrays the cost of cities and counties having to go. There's no fee for these things. It's provided. And so it's just a really good resource. But I want to commend Kyle and his efforts. Our best thing we have is our employees here at GDOT, and to invest in them has a ROI far beyond any road or bridge we ever build. So we're grateful for that and thankful that they adjusted and the projects that come out of the management development program are just amazing. And if you give our staff the freedom to figure out how to do things better, they absolutely will. So we like that. We'll look for the efficiency out of that. And again, invest in our people. We just can't go wrong. So thanks to Kyle for leading that. Made a lot of changes, not only just the name, but the focus and the attention given to our leaders, supervisors, managers, and to all our staff to try to help them along and for us all to be successful. So Kyle, I'll just say thank you for that. And again, if you would pass along that LTAP opportunity, we'd love for Beverly to be too busy.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a website for our LTAP, so it's on our external webpage if y'all want to look that up, or you can contact me for any information. So.
I think we have another question.
Yes, it's not a question, just a comment. I just want to tell you, I appreciate the way you've looked at the training and you've kept what works really well, but you've also changed it and made it more innovative and efficient. And I also really like how you've gotten it into smaller, more specific training that when you have, I guess you've identified the needs of each office separately and together as well. But I appreciate you doing that because I agree and I completely with the commissioner, what we put into our employees is what comes back out. And I think the relationship part is a challenge virtually, but I think it's really, really important in the workforce as we work as a team. So thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions, comments, thoughts? Mr. Moat, job well done.
Thank you very much.
I think that concludes the meeting for the program administrator.
If I can have everyone's attention, it is now 2:30. It is time for the Program Delivery Committee to come to order. Thank you all. And at this time, Mr. Franks, I'm going to ask you to come forward and give us your update, please. It's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee, other members of the board, and our boss, Russell. There we go. All right. So I'm here to provide you an update on Heart of Georgia, Omaha, and River Valley regions and the TIA 2 progress that we have had over the past couple of years. We'll go ahead and start it out by talking about how TIA came about to begin with. Title 48, Chapter 8, Article 5 enables regions to come together to institute a 10-year sales tax. And in that code, there's actually a little component that allows the regions to come together and pass that again. So that's what our 3 regions have been doing. Before, I've provided you an update on CSRA and their continuation of the 10 years, which has already been voted on. River Valley and Heart of Georgia, Omaha regions are currently working on that. So the TIA office and the planning offices have closely coordinated with the regional commissions for the Heart of Georgia, Omaha region, and River Valley to ensure that the process ran smoothly. Early on, cities and counties for each of the regions were informed of the process. They actually, all the counties passed a resolution to start the next 10 years. And we got together with the regional commission and taught them how to submit projects, how to look at projects in their counties and in their cities, and submit projects for consideration under the 10-year sales tax. The regional roundtable elected officials to the executive committee to oversee the project submission and selection process. We'll go over each one of the executive committees here in a little bit in a couple slides. And cities and counties were kept informed via their executive committees, representatives, and TIA and planning teams made themselves available to answer any project-specific questions. So we've worked closely with the regions, with the executive committees, and with the regional roundtables over the past couple of years to do this, develop these two lists, and we'll kind of go through the level today. All right, so the process, the counties all passed the resolution. Cities and counties send representatives to form the regional roundtable. The roundtable sets criteria for selection of projects. The cities and counties submit projects, and GDOT determines which meets the region's criteria, and we form the unconstrained project list. The executive committee takes what is a much larger list than we can fund, and they whittle that down to what becomes the draft investment list. And then we have 2 to 3 public meetings in this case. Then the roundtable reconvenes and either approves or amends the approved investment list. And we are pushing for the May 22 ballot referendum. So we probably wouldn't be looking at TIA 2 if it wasn't for TIA 1. So we'll briefly highlight TIA 1 and some of the success that we've had over the first 9 years. In River Valley, we had 23 original projects with a TIA investment of around $380 million. We currently have 3 projects under construction. We have 17 projects complete. We have 1 operations project that is ongoing and 2 projects left to deliver in construction over the last year. So we're in good shape to finish up the first 10-year period. Happy to report that. So types of projects that we did in TIA 1, we had bike pedestrian projects, passing lane projects, 5 passing lane projects in fact, operations projects, resurfacing, bridges, widening, transit, interchange projects, a little bit of everything forming the 23 projects in River Valley. So I talked to you about the executive committee. So let's look at who was on the executive committee. These gentlemen had a very difficult job of taking what was over $1 billion worth of transportation investment and whittling that down to our size pot. So Chairman Carvel Lewis ran the executive committee. Chairman George Neal from Marion County, Chairman Mickey George from Macon County, Mayor Skip Henderson from Columbus Consolidated Government, and Mayor Barry Blunt from the City of Americus. So these gentlemen really had a hard job, and they did a great job going back to their counties that they represented and the cities, and did a great job coordinating this effort. So the TIA 2 River Valley revenue projections, the total projected revenue of what TIA can bring in River Valley is $664 million and some change. Of that, right at $500 million will go to fund the approved investment list, with $166 million being dispersed directly to the local governments, the cities and counties, via discretionary funding. And that goes once a month directly from GISFIC. So we look at that and we size that number down in today's dollars from the 10-year period, and we gave them a starting point of roughly $400 million to develop the approved investment list for this next 10 years. So what type of projects ended up making it on the draft investment list? We have 2 passing lanes projects, 5 bike/pedestrian projects, 9 resurfacing projects, 3 widening projects, 22 safety/operations projects, 2 airport jobs, 1 transit job, and 2 bridges, for a total of 46 projects. You know, that's almost double what we had in the first. The executive committee definitely made a stance that they wanted to see a project per every region in River Valley, and that's something they really pushed for and they held to. And every one of the counties has a project on the draft investment list this time. Just wanted to highlight a couple of projects that's in River Valley on the draft investment list. One of the largest projects that we have is the US 280 corridor, which comprises of 3 projects, and this would continue the widening from Lake Blackshear all the way to the City of Americus. This project would total widening around 19.2 miles and would represent an investment of TIA and state funds of approximately $173 million. So this is a pretty sizable chunk of the investment in the entire River Valley corridor. Another project is, this is a great representation. A lot of people ask me all the time, what's the difference between a single county TIA or a T-SPLOST and TIA? This is one thing that the regional T-SPLOST can do that a single county can't. Dooley and Crisp County both noted that the Coney Road corridor was both important to both of their counties. So their projects that they submitted, this was both their #1 priority to resurface and improve this corridor. So you're going to be looking at a total of investment of approximately $11.4 million on this corridor, and it'll represent a resurfacing and widening of around 16 miles. It's a great example of what 2 counties can do in the regional aspect of TIA. Another project I'd like to highlight is in operational improvements on State Route 315. Basically, this is a corridor that GDOT had noted and potentially submitted for consideration. Harris County had also noted that they wanted this corridor looked at, so this was one of those projects that both GDOT and the region wanted to look at, so it made sense that the executive committee let this project make it on the final investment list. So we'll be doing operational improvements on the intersections throughout this corridor to improve it. And this will represent approximately a $7 million investment in TIA in Harris County. All right, so now we'll jump into Heart of Georgia Automobile region, and we'll jump back and look at what we did in the first 10 years, or what we've done in the 9 years, and what we've got left to go. 764 projects total. You'll notice that is a slightly different approach than what River Valley did with their 23 projects. A total investment of around $255 million originally. We currently have 140 projects under construction, 599 complete. We have 24 left to move to construction in the next year. So we're in good shape to get that wrapped up, and we've expended right at $148 million. So what type of projects did we have in Heart of Georgia in TIA 1? The vast majority of them are resurfacing/paving. So 654 of those were resurfacing/paving, 42 dirt road to paved roads, 16 bridges, 14 widenings, 14 sidewalk/drainage projects, 13 safety/operations jobs, 9 new roadways, and 2 transits. So the executive committee was comprised of 6 members. Heart of Georgia Automobile decided to have an alternative member, just in case somebody was unable to attend, to be able to vote and break ties. Chairman Jimmy Rogers from Lawrence County chaired the committee. Chairman David Sykes from Toombs County. Commissioner James Thomas from Wayne County. Mayor Joey Fountain from the city of Mount Vernon. And Mayor Mike Young from the city of McRae-Helena. Mayor Baden Stone was the alternative member from Hazelhurst. And these guys did a very good job as well. They definitely had a different approach from River Valley, so they decided to allocate the projects and kind of cut the money in half and choose a local style project. That's why you see so many resurfacing/paving jobs on here, with the vast majority of it going to a maintenance style approach of the Heart of Georgia Automobile region. How much funds are we looking at for TIA 2? The total revenue for the 10-year period would be around, or is $392.1 million. $294 million would go to fund the approved investment list, with $98 million being dispersed to the cities and counties in the Heart of Georgia Automobile region. When we look at that and we pare that number down to today's dollars, they had a starting point of $235.8 million to come up with the draft investment list. So what type of projects? It's looking very similar to the first. We've got the numbers ticked down just a little bit, but 466 resurfacing/paving projects, 46 dirt to paved roads, 41 sidewalk/drainage projects, 9 widening, 8 safety/operations, 7 new roadways, 2 transits, 1 planning study for a total of 580 projects over the next 10-year period. Highlight a couple of projects that we have in Heart of Georgia. We've got Buckeye Road, widening from Morgan Road in Lawrence County through Johnson and ending at State Route 57 in Washington County. So again, this is a great example of 3 counties coming together to identify a corridor that is of major importance to all 3 counties. Dublin's pretty much the largest city around. This is one of their main corridors to get to the city from Washington County and Johnson County. So they're able to improve this local route and put a lot of maintenance funds in it that, you know, they wouldn't be able to do if they were looking at it from a single county aspect. So this project is a little over 16 miles and will invest right at $3.6 million in this corridor. A project of importance to GDOT and the locals was the Lines Bypass. This project is going to have an investment of around $14.5 million in TIA and some additional state funds to complete this job, looking at a total investment of around $67 million on this project. So this is a large project and a big chunk in the GRIP corridor that's been in the works for a long period of time. And TIA loves these projects, looks to chip in and help. So that's a great project between GDOT and the regions. So we've highlighted mostly the projects that are going to be funded by the approved investment list and the 75% funds. I always like to touch on the discretionary funds, and these funds are dispersed directly to the cities and counties once a month from GISPIC. GDOT has no oversight over these funds. Cities and counties can use these for maintenance. They can use them for pretty much anything that's spelled out in the legislation, for any transportation purpose, pretty much. You know, as far as staffing or, you know, trucks for a transportation department or equipment. There's a lot of flexibility in this for the discretionary funds. And just to highlight how much has been collected over the first 9 years, Heart of Georgia has received a little over $70 million, and River Valley has received around $108 million. So that's a lot of local investment that's been dispersed to all the cities and counties throughout these 2 regions. So this is the actual ballot question that will be on in the May referendum. Shall blank county's transportation system and the transportation network in this region and state be improved by providing a 1% special district transportation sales and use tax for the purpose of transportation projects and programs for a period of 10 years. So this will be listed. Advertisements will be ramping up here shortly in Heart of Georgia. So you might receive questions if you're in the Heart of Georgia Omaha region about what is this referendum that's going to be on the May ballot. It is TIA 2. It'll be listed as T-Splost. We always like to let everybody know we've branded T-Splost, the regional T-Splost, as TIA, but it is the same thing. So with that, we're excited about the future and the opportunity for TIA to continue in these 2 regions. We think we've got a great track record of success over our first 9 years, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Kenneth, for that presentation. Any members have any questions? Yeah, right. Yeah, Ms. Dunn.
Does GDOT assist in advertising or communicating to the public the successes that have happened throughout these last 9 years of the TIA projects and how much they've benefited the locals who vote or did vote for it?
So we like to make ourselves available when requested. I know I just recently went and spoke at the Rotary Club in Crisp County, and we talked about what we've been doing over the first 9 years, and that was at a request. We don't go out and stump, so to speak, but we provide information when requested. So we definitely make ourselves available for any request that we can get to.
Mr. Morris?
Yeah, and it's on our public website as well. We like to put everything out there on there.
Yeah, I will say that to that point, but there are subtle ways to do it. And the signs out next to the projects beside the road that says this is a TIA project, I always point that out when somebody says, well, what? I said, well, it's what it says on the sign. So vote for yourself.
We've got a lot of those throughout heart of Georgia.
Oh, you really do. Right, and it is interesting. I appreciate that's a great presentation, pointing out the difference in the two regions, and there's reasons for that.
Mr. Floyd?
Yes, I'd like to say that, it's been a real asset. We've done a lot with TIA and, particularly in the, River Valley area. We, as a board, discussed one time, would like to have 4-lane road from Columbus to Savannah to the port. And, we have accomplished a good bit of this with our TIA program. And if the new program goes through in Sumter County, it'll be quite a bit. We'll just about have it from Columbus to Cornell. And so that's a big savings to the state, and it's a lot of money involved in it. It's a program. Like to see it continued.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll say a few things here. One is, just want to commend Kenneth and his predecessors, that it's hard to believe that we're entering the 10th year of the original TIA program. That's when I had long dark hair, if you guys remember back that far. But it's been fantastic, and success begets success, and it's a testament that Central Savannah River area has already affirmed and passed their next 10 years, and here we are on the precipice of River Valley taking action next week. December 15th is they actually have public comment and then move their list forward, as Kenneth said, to the referendum. So that's big. In heart of Georgia, again, the success of all those projects you saw. And I just remind the board that, and Kenneth mentioned this subtly, but these dollars don't come to GDOT at all. They're segregated. They're Georgia State Finance Investment Commission is the bank, if you will, for the dollars. Kenneth has draws and makes sure that projects are funded through that, so there's no commingling of funding. And the other thing he mentioned was the roundtables that it took to develop these lists, and I certainly want to call out Janine Miller and the planning division for being very present, very engaged, especially with River Valley, which was, you said $1 billion, and you weren't kidding, $1 billion down to the approved investment list number took, I don't know if whittling's the right word, that's more like chiseling, but took a lot of work. And to Johnny's point there, you know, a significant regional corridor like 280, and to build on the success of TO1, which built part of 280 up to Lake Blackshear, completes a major corridor that, again, in partnership, that GDOT wouldn't have advanced on that timeline if it wasn't for local governments putting in money. So it's truly a great form of partnership in these three regions. Ms. Dunn, we certainly have tried to educate and provide any information we can. We do have a fine line from we can't advocate, but we certainly can educate on the past successes and the details, and again, the efficiency. Kenneth, make sure you let everybody know how many people works in your office, including yourself.
I have 4 GDOT employees currently and a consultant team, and we keep them as lean as possible.
And that was one of the visions, and Kenneth's done a great job in implementing that. Is these are not our dollars. We want to be extremely frugal with those dollars and put the maximum amount back into the projects or back into the pot for the discretionary funding that the locals can use. And I believe every local government will tell you that. And Kenneth and his team is always super responsive on whenever called upon, and have built tremendous, strong local relationships to make this a success. So, congratulations for entering in year 9. And we told Kenneth on the call the other day that congratulations, he's up for another 10 years for TIA. So, thanks for being with us for another decade in the TIA, running TIA.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Any other board member, committee member have a question or comment? But before you go, Kenneth, I'd like to ask, for the benefit of us board members whose district chose not to participate in TIA 10 years ago, if those regions decided they wanted to try and start that up again, how would they initiate that process at this point?
Typically, the way it started with Middle Georgia and Southern Georgia, whenever they looked at it in, I believe it was 2017, in late 2016 when they started. A couple of the counties started talking about it, and they reached out to the regional commission. And basically what you need to start the process is over 50% of the counties in the region would need to pass a resolution saying that they support it and want to move forward and look at it. And once that happens, then that starts the time clock rolling and the ball rolling on the regional commission the regional roundtable being formed and all of that. So a great place to start. If you know a county that's interested, have them reach out to the regional commission. Yeah, that's a really great place to start.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have a question related to those comments? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any final comment or question? This committee is adjourned.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to bring the Committee of the Whole to order, please. First on our agenda today is an update on the airport rule with Steve Bryan, our Aviation Program Manager. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Let's see if we can get this to move. There we go. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Bryan. I'm the Aviation Program Manager for the Intermodal Division. This is going to be a brief presentation and a follow-on to Carol Comer's last presentation to the Intermodal Committee back in October that provided details on the proposed amendments to the rules, regulations for licensing of certain open to the public airports. During the October meeting, the rule amendments were reviewed in detail, and these changes were then open to the public for 30 days, ending on November 22nd. During the comment period, we received 2 comments from airports for board consideration and adoption. These 2 comments referred to first, the approach and departure path definition, where the words departure path could be removed from that definition, as state only has a standard for approach standards only. We think this is an appropriate change to the rules, and also it was also contained in the minimum standards inside the rules and regulations as well, and that same word will be removed from that paragraph. And the second pertains to the area of fueling area requirements, where this section we would have the words removed, grounding, and changed out for bonding. Bonding is now the technical term used to prevent static electricity in fueling operations. So we do feel that's an appropriate change as well. So finally, these 2 proposed changes to the rules and regulations, along with those that were presented in October, would be asked tomorrow for the board to adopt. So with that, I said it would be a short presentation the way it is. If you have any questions regarding those rules and regulations, I'll be glad to answer them for you.
Are there any rules? Are there any questions? I'm sorry, we do have rules. I need questions. I don't think so, but that was a very short, excellent presentation. So we look forward to tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next on our agenda, I'm very excited to invite District 1, our district engineer, Calvin Mullins, and for a presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and Commissioner. I'm Calvin Mullins here for a district update. Today, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do a little bit of a district overview. I'm going to talk about our traffic operations office, pre-construction office, some of our active construction projects, some of our maintenance activities, and our quick response program. District 1's 21 Northeast Georgia counties. We have 2,300 centerline miles of state routes, 109 centerline miles of interstates, and we have a population of almost 2.2 million people. Some of our major routes are I-85, I-985, State Route 365, State Route 400, and State Route 316. We have 4 GDOT area offices, one in Gainesville, one in Athens, one in Carnesville, one in Cleveland. And if you know our district, it varies widely depending on where you are. In Gwinnett and Hall, and Forsyth, very almost, metro. And then we got the mountains up in towns, Union and Raven. We've got a city of Athens. And some rural areas also. So it varies widely depending on where you are in the district. This is a picture of our district office. I wanted to show this. That we've been in this office about 4 years. We occupy the bottom 2 floors there. And if you have ever been to our old district office, you know this is a great improvement. And that old district office was actually demolished this summer. So it is gone. We have 428 positions in the district, and we currently have 99 vacancies. We've been working really hard on this with HR over the last 6 months or so. We identified some plans to hire some people, and in a program, one of our goals was to hire 100 by Christmas, and we actually hired 133 positions. That's hiring new positions or promotions. So we did meet that goal. We do still have some work to do. 99 vacancies, which is a lot. We have turnover as far as retirements and resignations also. So. And we have some issues with some continuing issues with some particular positions where we advertise them over and over internally and externally, and you can't get any qualified applications. So we're working on that too to try to fill those positions. I want to talk for just a second about our traffic operations office. They do all of our driveway access permits and signal permits, and they do a lot of work for us in the district, not just these. I just wanted to highlight those. We are a growing district, a lot of development going on in the district, and it's not just in those, Hall, Forsyth, not just Gwinnett, those areas. It's also in our rural areas. We actually pulled some traffic numbers on State Route 8 in Hartwell, which is a pretty rural town, and since 2018, we've noticed an increase of 2,000 vehicles per day in that rural town. So as development and increases, these numbers increase for our district. Everybody needs an access permit or a signal. So you see our FY21 numbers. We had 176 driveway access permits approved and 75 signal permits and 23 traffic studies. And it also showed the 36 days to average to process and 33 days average processing time for signals. We track that to make sure we're being responsive and providing good customer service. Our goal is 45 days on our driveway access permits, so we're good on that. But back to the growth and the increasing workload on our traffic operations office. Just in FY22 so far, we've already processed over 100 driveway applications, access permits, and 50 signal permits. So we're way ahead of where we were already in FY21. I'm going to move over to pre-construction updates. This is a project that our district design office is working on. This is State Route 365 at Howard Road. So if you're headed northbound on 985, when 985 kind of ends and turns into State Route 365, this is the first traffic signal you come to. So the goal of this project is to remove that traffic signal and put some type of interchange there. Now this is a concept level, and this could change at any time, but right now it's shown as you see on the left there. That's a bridge that crosses over 365. We'll be removing the traffic signal, closing the median, and providing right in, right out access on those side roads there. Why this project is important, about a mile north of here is where the new inland port is going in Gainesville. So it'll be important once that gets open, get this alternative interchange or some other type of interchange here open to keep that traffic moving through there and relieve some congestion in that area. And that is a district design project. Our pre-construction office in the district is also coordinating closely with the planning office and communications office for some stakeholder outreach that we're planning for next year to talk about improvements along State Route 316. And we want to get some outreach into the public of what we've got planned there. So the goal along State Route 316 in Gwinnett, Barrow, and Oconee is to remove every signalized intersection and to replace it with some type of interchange or other type of intersection there, just to get rid of that, get rid of those signals along that corridor. So we have 31 projects along that corridor in all 3 of those counties to do that. Here are some of the project goals: reduce the severity and frequency of crashes, reduce congestion, improve mobility, The main overall goal is to turn 316 into more of a free flow facility in that area, between Gwinnett and Athens. So a lot of work coming up on State Route 316. And as I transition to construction updates, we actually have a couple of projects in construction already on State Route 316. This is State Route 316 at 53 in Barrow County. So what you can see here in the middle, that's the new bridge that's going to be over State Route 53. This was a signalized intersection. And it's pretty neat the way they do this. They go ahead and build those ramps for the State Route 53 interchange first and move the traffic out onto those ramps while we build the bridge in the center. And then they'll, once the bridge is built, we can tie those road back in the middle. Here's another view. So the bridge is sort of at the bottom of the screen. At the top of the screen, you can see where the old 316 came right down the center there. So once that bridge is built, we'll put those lanes back in and shift traffic back to the middle. And these ramps on the inside, where the traffic is now, will turn into the ramps for State Route 53. So it's a pretty good way of doing things, keeping the traffic flowing through there. And that's a $27 million project. It should be open next summer. A lot of what I wanted to talk about today and show is I wanted to focus on partnerships. I think partnerships is one of the most important things we can do. We work hard in the district to work with our local government agencies. This is a good example of a partnership. State Route 324 at I-85 in Gwinnett County. So this project, 324 had been widened in years past. It had the bridge had been built to accommodate ramps, but there was no interchange here. So this project just added the ramps to this state route here. And we opened those ramps on 11/23, right before Thanksgiving. Reason this project's important and that date of open to traffic is important is 324 ties into State Route 20, which is right at the Mall of Georgia. So this really relieves traffic in that area and assists with some of that traffic flow, especially during the holidays. So it's a great project. It's a local let project that Gwinnett County was managing. And another partnership is in Forsyth County. This is State Route 400, it's State Route 369, very congested intersection. If you're going north on 400, this is the first traffic signal you come to in Forsyth County. There, this Brownsbridge Church there's a Walmart on the right-hand side, and you see all those, that subdivision up there. So it's very congested. This project will add a bridge over State Route 400, remove the signal, and it also includes 2 miles of widening on State Route 369. So this is a $44 million project with Forsyth County is contributing all but $16 million. They're doing this with bond funds. So this is definitely a project that would not be being built today without the work of Forsyth County to advance this work. And it's a much needed project in this area, and it's going to be great when we have another interchange there and get rid of this signal on 400. Completion date, winter of 2023. We'll call it December. This is State Route 60 at Oak Grove Road, another good partnership in Lumpkin County. I enjoy this project because this project came to me in my previous role as local grants administrator. Lumpkin County came and, was looking for some funding assistance for a roundabout at this state route at Oak Grove Road. There's 2 schools right down the street here. This was #1 project on their T-Splosh that they had just passed, so it was important to them. We worked through various options of different sizes of roundabouts and different costs and settled on this one. We got the bid for $1.2 million. GDOT's contributing $750,000. Our district designed this, and it's a local let project, and the locals paid for all the right-of-way. And we're also assisting with some of the project inspections. So this is a great project, and it's almost complete now. It'll be completed by the end of the year. So, but it's a great project in the area, and we coordinated with the locals in the school. We did have to close one of these roads down during the summer, and we worked at when schools were out. So we were able to get it back open when school started. So it's a great project, great partnership with Lumpkin County. I'll move over to maintenance. This is another partnership. This is with DNR. So DNR came to us with a need to resurface Amicalola State Park. The roads were in pretty bad condition. DNR actually paid for all of the asphalt costs to resurface, and our GDOT maintenance crews did the resurfacing. And this was good for us too. It was a good opportunity to provide some training for our staff, our inexperienced staff, without all the heavy traffic, you know. So it was a good opportunity for training. The project was great, and as you might, if you've been on into Amicalola State Park, it was a little challenging too. It's pretty steep and some windy roads up there. So they did a great job on that. And we did this last summer, and we did such a great job that DNR came to us again for Fort Yargo State Park. So we did this work this summer. So same deal. They paid for that cost of the asphalt, and we did the resurfacing, and it looks great. Maintenance, you know, moving on to a little bit of a COVID response. Our maintenance worked with GEMA, and we did some resurfacing here. This is the Habersham County mass vaccination site. So we did some paving over there, and we provided some barrels and cones and traffic control and various, you know, some message boards and that kind of thing. So they did a great job over there. Our maintenance forces also delivered over made 100 trips to deliver medical supplies in COVID response. So good job to those guys on that. And this is the slide that I hope we don't have to deal with this year. So far, so good. Last year, we had 15 winter weather events in District 1. They were pretty small events in all. We did use 450,000 gallons of brine and over 1,000 tons of salt. The big problem was we had to come in on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day for a snow event, and then we kind of got in a routine. It seemed like for 2 straight months of a winter weather event coming in on a Friday, and having, you know, guys having to come in and work all weekend for multiple weekends in a row. And we did have one event that was supposed to be, you know, just our mountain counties, 3 or 4 counties, and ended up being a district-wide event. And it was impressive to see. It was my first time being involved in the district with the winter weather. It was impressive to see them react and adjust on the fly, and you know, call all the counties in that weren't expecting to be called in. And they did a great job keeping the roads in good shape district-wide. We also had a hurricane come through in March of this year. This was Hurricane Zeta. So this is State Route 2, US 76 in Rabun County. On top of the hill there is the Waterfall Country Club, and it overlooks Lake Burton. So there's 4 houses right on the edge of this cliff there. I don't know if you check home prices up there, but these are pretty expensive houses right there on the edge of this slope. And our right-of-way goes all the way to the top. So we knew we had an issue. We reached out to GSI, who's a firm that specializes in this kind of work. They were able to give us a bid within 3 days, a bid and a design to stabilize the slope. And within 4 more days, they were mobilized and began work. And they focused first on that top section to make sure they could get it stabilized. They drilled, here's a picture of the final product. In the concrete section at the top, they drilled 40-foot nails into the slope to stabilize it, and then put this shotcrete concrete over the top. And then kind of below that is some geotextile fabric that allows grass to go through. And we put a nice fence at the top. So this was a great project, and they completed all the work within 3 months once they started. And just to show you kind of how close those houses were, on the tree line you can see the fence there, and then that's his extension of his house and a fire pit. The fire pit's about 2 feet from that fence, so it was right on the edge of being even a bigger issue here. So glad that, you know, everything worked out there. This was last week, actually, on I-85, in Hart County at the state line. Our maintenance forces partnered with the State Botanical Garden and UGA to plant 1,600 bulbs in this area for some flowers and shrubs in this area of I-85 and the median, and at the Welcome Center. They actually came out and did some soil testing and provided some recommendations for what would work well here, and they assisted with the planting too, and this will support our pollination too, so for butterflies and bees. So it's a good job to have that out there. I can't wait to see what that looks like in the spring. We'll move on real quick with some ITB numbers. We had last year with our ITBs, we did 21 projects for $12.6 million, and then there's a breakdown of improvement type. So $9.3 million for pavement preservation and $2.4 million for PCC concrete repairs, like on 316-85. Those are some of our main projects there. Here's an example of one of our ITBs that we just finished this weekend. This is I-85 northbound bridge over the North Coney River in Jackson County at milepost 144. So this is right before the 441 exit. There's a bridge there. The bridge was built in 1964, and we had some continual kind of bridge issues in this location where it was developing some potholes and some issues. We had some emergency closures over the last few months, of lane closures where we had to go in there and make some temporary patches. This picture on the left is a temporary patch, but with all the truck traffic and the high speed, it kind of just kept popping out. So we got with the bridge office and looked for something that would last a little longer, more of a permanent fix here. So, we saw cut that out, made some repairs to the rebar in there and put some concrete in, something that lasts a little longer. The good news is this bridge is included in one of the I-85 widening design build projects. So it is scheduled to be replaced shortly, but we didn't want to risk that any longer. It's going to be at least a year, so we wanted to make sure we can get something in there that would hold. So we had about 5 or 6 spots like this on this one bridge where we had to do these repairs. We did it over a couple weekends and just finished last weekend. So that'll hold up. It's good use of that program. Quick response program. This is we've talked about this before at the board. These are projects that are under $200,000, don't have any right-of-way, and limited environmental impact. So they're quick, small projects, but they're big impact because they're immediate. We can do a lot of good things, adding right turn lanes. We do some R-cuts and roundabouts and some operational improvements. So we did 17 projects for $2.5 million last year. Here's an example of one of our quick response projects. On the left, you see a worn-out dirt path there with a lot of pedestrian traffic, and they were walking that way and then balancing on that parapet wall of the culvert, and somebody actually fell off in there and got injured. So we met with City of Gainesville and Hall County on kind of what to do, and we worked through different options and costs of, do we extend the culvert? Do we add other kind of pedestrian facilities in the area? What we settled on was we had some extra pavement in there, so we shifted the traffic over a little and put a sidewalk and gave them a room to walk. It's $85,000 and quick and easy, and everybody's happy, and it's a great project, great benefit. So that's State Route 13 in the City of Gainesville. And this is an example of an R-cut. I know Grant and others recently have talked about the safety benefits of R-cuts. This is it allows a left turn into the side road, but prevents the left turn out of the side roads, forces that right-hand movement, and you go down and make a U-turn. We get a lot of pushback, when we're talking about these and early on, but after they get built, they work pretty great, and they're a big safety improvement. We have 3 going on right now, 2 on Jefferson Bypass in Jackson County, one at State Route 82, one at Old Swimming Pool Road, and we have one in Union County on State Route 515 at State Route 325. So those are all in construction right now, and we have others planned in the future. And I'll end on something you don't know what you're going to see on a construction project. So this was last week also on Franklin County on I-85. Keith Teams is one of our consultant inspectors, and Jackson Orr is a CE2 that works on our Carnesville area office. They saw this barred owl that had been injured in the median of I-85. They were able to capture it and take it to a animal hospital where he's at a raptor rehab facility. And last I heard, he's doing fine. So good job for those guys. And that concludes my report.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? I'll make a comment. Kelvin is an exceptional district engineer. He is very sensitive to our constituents' needs and concerns, and when they're upset. He's very sensitive, but he's also very calming to them. But he offers a great expertise. I think you're a great example to the employees in the district, and I know that they look up to you and appreciate that about you. And I appreciate it as well.
Thank you.
I noticed that firsthand with him.
Yes. Yes, very, he's just very calming and sensitive, because I know especially one of those arc cuts involved the death of a young girl, and the family was extremely distraught, and he moved that very quickly, and that is very appreciated for that area. And they're also sensitive to how it impacted the local, actually it's a horse ring, because they had to extend the decel lanes because it involved a lot of horse trailers, and we did not want a horse accident so on a busy highway. But I appreciate you very much, Kelvin.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, if that's all, we are adjourned.